Final Fantasy XII has always been an experience that never gets old. From start to finish, we got to explore a world full of mystery, only to be captivated within its beauty. Though the world witnessed its share amongst the hellfires of war, Ivalice has become a place forever grained into our memories. With diverse races and locations, we went out of our way to explore as much of Ivalice as we could, but despite our efforts, there were some locations that were off limits, unable to be obtained for the eyes for exploration. Locations such as the inside of Dr. Sid's lab in Arcadia, to the meeting area where Vaughn was taken while in Bujirba. And while these locations were mostly present in only cutscenes, we never got to see a bigger scope of what was actually inside these rooms. So today we are doing something a little bit different and taking ourselves as witness to these events unfolding as we watch from a different perspective. An out-of-bounds perspective. And so as we watch unblinking, we will be observing and exploring the room where Vaughn takes the sword of the Old Order to Vossler, and to see the hideout to where the Resistance resides. Hidden deep within the winding walls and dimly lit dark corridors of Lowtown, the Resistance's hideout has become but one of many unknown obscurities, forever inconspicuous amongst the wandering eye. Where many are excluded due to its concealed nature, being able to observe the room from a different perspective was quite the treasure to behold. Resembling the lavish architectural design found within the soaring edifices above, the hideout's conducive atmosphere allowed for members of the Resistance to be forthright and discuss matters pertaining to recent events, such as questioning Ondor's proclamation, Basch's sudden yet enigmatic return, to even devising plans against their new console, Vane, and even Arcadia. Within the dimly lit confines of the room, an array of formidable weapons can be found leaning against the wall. Scattered about, weathered supply crates bear the mark of countless journeys between hideouts, hinting at the secrets they hold within. At the center stands a sturdy table laden with a collection of books and records that contain vital information between hideouts. Above, a flag of Dalmasca's seal hangs proudly against the wall, alongside a sprawling map of Ivalice intricately detailing the diverse landscapes and its territories. Though this room may not contain the exquisite intricacies to say like that of Arcadia, but the level of detail in just one area really demonstrates the craftsmanship Square put into this game, even if the rooms, such as the Resistance's hideout, were something that we weren't really supposed to see a lot of. With the hideout given a more proper viewing, I wanted to take and pan the camera outside the boundary to see what we could find, and as you can see, the hideaway itself is the only piece within this void besides the staircase that's attached to it. I even spent a decent amount of time flying around to see if there were anything by some chance, such as any hidden assets, that were kind of floating out of sight, but unfortunately there wasn't anything I could find. Given that we finally got to witness what was hidden behind concealed doors that were off limits to curious onlookers, I wanted to view the entire cutscene from multiple different angles, just to give the idea on how the cutscene itself unfolded. So, one thing you won't notice at the beginning of the cutscene is that you can actually see Vaughn standing directly in the middle of the room just before he despawns when the scene loads in. Now, my guess to this is that this is the model that the player controls, and given how you're not actively involved, given that this is just a cutscene, there is no use for it since players were never meant to view or visit this area by normal means. Interestingly, if you pan the camera towards the door while progressing the cutscene frame by frame, you'll notice the character models involved in the scene will all spawn in on top of one another as they're standing in their famous T-pose. Resuming the cutscene and having it play out normally, you'll see some of the Resistance members conversing amongst one another as usual, but the one thing you won't notice is that whenever the camera shifts view to the front of the hideout to where the members are standing, if you turn the camera slightly to the right once the camera shifts its view to another angle of the Resistance members, you'll actually see Basch standing in front of the door he uses to make his entrance. Now, his character model actually stands there right up until the exact moment he's needed for the cutscene. What's even fascinating about this is that this is the part that you can even hear an audio cue play as if he walked through the door as it closed behind him. But viewing this part of the scene in a different angle, you can actually see that the door was neither animated nor actually utilized during this sequence. After several intense exchanges between Basch, Vossler, and the other members of the Resistance, given around the 6th camera angle, if you shift your view and move to the entrance where the members are standing, you can actually see Vaughn's character model spawn in right behind the doors where he normally comes through. Now, you would have thought he stood out of view from the camera given its position, but what you don't see is that he actually contains some animation right before he walks through the doors, clipping through the geometry as he makes his entrance. Now, the most obvious question that I'm sure everybody is thinking about is, what's with all the jumping around for the character models? Well, when the camera angle changes, especially during cutscenes, the models themselves are put in place to where they are needed best to serve the scene, which, from my understanding, is usually very commonplace in cutscenes within video games. Now, as the scene plays out, you'll notice a few things from some character models with no animation, as if they're just standing there with no expression or concern to the events happening around them, even some of them clipped into one another while off screen. You'll even notice a 2D texture that wasn't fully cleaned up, as it can be seen behind Basch, and while at first I thought this was only in the PC version of the game, the PlayStation, Switch, and even the Xbox versions contain this little detail. Through each shot of the cutscene, as the camera jumps around, characters can be seen despawning, even with some lighting effects happening, especially between Basch and Vossler, which provides some sense of tension to the atmosphere. So to finish up, I wanted to show a few more things that you normally won't notice since the angle of the camera changes rather frequent from shot to shot. Like when Vossler gives the sword to Basch, you'll notice that in the next camera angle that he's no longer holding the sword that is thrown to him, as it's just floating there. There's even some of the characters' mouths that don't move when they're actually speaking, simply because not only of their position, but where the camera pans during the certain part of the scene. So to this, the animators actually didn't need to take the time animating their mouths. If you pan the camera to the member with the helmet and take a look at what's underneath to get a closer view of his face, you can actually see that his eyes are somewhat larger than usual, and that his face wasn't fully modeled given that you weren't normally supposed to see what was hidden underneath. Speaking about what's underneath, I wanted to see if the characters themselves actually had fully modeled eyes and mouths. And if you were to pan the camera close enough to their faces, you can actually see that there's some characters that do have these half-modeled eyes, and to be honest, a full set of teeth as well, while others unfortunately don't. It's even weirder because it's creepy either way you look at it. To add to this, one of the members' faces is depicted with a high amount of detail, only to revert inexplicitly back to a low poly version later on. Now, whether this was an oversight by the developers or a deliberate choice to conserve memory, hoping that, players wouldn't notice, remains kind of like an enigmatic question. So to finish this off, when Basch taunts Vossler and walks away, you can even see that a piece of his outfit phases through his body as he walks towards the entrance as he leaves the Resistance's headquarters. And of course, the members around him show no sign of what's going on as they just stand there staring into nothingness, as if their bodies are just lifeless. Seeing a closer perspective of the hideout for where the Resistance laid low from the public view was something that I've always wanted to observe, despite it being obscure to only a select few, and finally being able to see it firsthand was quite interesting. Taking the time to explore the vast world of Ivalice has always been something that I have loved ever since the game's original release, and stumbling upon its mysteries that were veiled in a cloak of mist has always intrigued my curiosity. Though there are more mysteries out there waiting to be revealed, I just hope you guys enjoyed this video, as there's more to come with this method of exploration. I do appreciate your guys' patience with everything, and as I always do value your guys' support. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.